Good morning, everyone. Ed Oswald here with EchoTop Storm Chasers with an update for you here at 11:15 a.m. on Hermine. Well, folks, we may have dodged a bullet, and I'm going to tell you that we've been waffling back and forth, and it's really not because we want to hype the storm or anything. There's just every 6 to 12 hours, it seems like this storm wants to do something that isn't expected, and it's kind of hard from a forecasting perspective to tell you what a storm like this is going to do because it's just been a difficult forecast. So what I'm going to spend a majority of this video is explaining to you why it's doing what it's doing and why it keeps defying meteorologists' expectations. Real quickly, let's look at that rainbow color imagery, and why I use this rather than the regular infrared satellite is it shows up these low clouds better, and that's where we have that center. Because it's post-tropical, it doesn't have that tight center of circulations with storms around the center, those high clouds that show up here. You just can't see it as well. But the big thing to notice is it's still moving east. Right now it's at the longitude of about Rhode Island and still moving east. At that point, it was actually beginning, or supposed to, I should say, beginning to move to the north and then move back to the west, what we were calling that hook, or the meteorological term for it is retrograde. Why is that not happening? And I want to actually let you know that this was actually one of those possibilities, maybe not what we thought as probable, but it ended up happening anyway. We're going to look here at this surface map, and you can see here's the low pressure system that is Hermine. Now I want you to look to the north of it. This area where you see these two H's, sometimes on these maps it shows you more than one high pressure system. It's just the way it is, but it's more of an elongated area of high pressure, we'll call it. But what this does is, if you think of the winter, and you think of meteorologists telling you if it's going to snow or not, they always talk about high pressure systems to the north, especially when we're here in the northeast. What that does is keep the storm offshore. Now, the same thing can happen during the summer, but in this case, it's keeping a tropical system from hitting the coast. That's why we don't get a lot of storms going through New York City and Cape Cod, or they're always offshore because there is usually some kind of high pressure system, typically in some area right around the northeast, usually in the southeastern part of Canada. That happens here, and what that does is this storm should move to the east. So that's why Hermine keeps moving to the east rather than coming back, to hit the coast somewhere. And you're probably thinking, well, then why did the meteorologists forecast it to come back? That doesn't make sense to me. That's because there's another factor, and this is why I wanted to explain this. There's multiple factors at play here and why this makes this forecast so difficult. The next map I'm looking at here is actually a map from Null School, and I know I've been showing this several times, that you can see, because it shows you the wind flows, and it's really easier as a visual aid. Now, down here, that is Hermine. And that is what the storm at question here. But at the upper levels, there's something called an upper level low, which is basically a low pressure system at the upper levels. That's what you're seeing here. Now, when these two interact, typically what you see is it captures the storm. And that's why we've been talking about that capture. But it also will cause the storm to, instead of move to the east, like what is normal and what is typical of an event like this, it will actually cause it to possibly turn to the north and then the west because it pulls it back. Well, these two systems, there isn't, this is a low at the upper levels here, but this is another upper level low here. That should have been closer together, and so the hook should have started to develop here because we should have saw that capture already. The fact that these two are so not far apart, but far apart enough, I should say, is the reason why Hermine is still able to make her way to the east. Now, I do have to let you know that that is eventually going to happen. And I know we've been telling you things, and we've been saying this is going to happen, and it hasn't happened. This will happen eventually. It's just going to happen a little bit later. And the guidance from 7 a.m., like I said, this runs 4 times a day, every 6 hours, still shows the hook. It still shows the hook, but you can see, and it's not much different from the other models. It's still the same distance back to the west, but the fact is, because Hermine made her way so far east, now this hook, it's going to only take it back so far, and that means a lot less effects for the coast here. You're not going to see the storm surge that we had initially anticipated, even the rain. Initially, I was thinking a good bet for 4 to 5 inches of rain, especially along the coast. You might be lucky in some of these areas, and especially down here, to see an inch, maybe 2. I would think that possibly the higher amounts, around 2 inches, probably be on the order of Long Island, maybe Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeastern Massachusetts at this point, because of the hook is coming so late. But you can see that's still going to happen, but because it happened so far off the coast, things have changed dramatically, and we still will have a couple of cycles of storm surge. So even though the storm's further off the coast, it's still going to happen, but there's a lesser factor of intensity, of severity of that storm surge. So that's something that we really wanted to highlight here. And still, with all this, there still have those tropical storm warnings, because the wind field is still going to be expansive. They've been canceled anywhere south of the Chickateague and Assateague Island, so that is no longer in effect anywhere south. But still to the north, they have them for Long Island, the Connecticut coast, New Jersey coast, tropical storm warnings. The watches are still here for the part of Connecticut. It looks like a little bit of Connecticut and into the Cape of Massachusetts. Those will probably become tropical storm warnings quite shortly here, probably by the next advisory, because the storm is going to make it quite close there. And we're still forecasting here that hurricane, whatever it is, if it is tropical or not, some type of hurricane-like system out there. So these winds still will be quite strong in this area. But as you can see, things have changed. So just be aware that the effects here for the coast, especially for the Jersey, Delaware, Maryland beaches and Chickateague, Virginia, is not going to be as bad as initially forecast, at least for now. I know things have changed multiple times here, but it's been a difficult forecast. But I just wanted to give you a better idea of what we were up against and why the forecast keeps changing, because there's a lot of factors at play. We'll have probably another video here, I believe, later tonight, depending on what happens here with Hermine. Hopefully no surprises, because there's been a lot. But until then, I'm Ed Oswald, and we'll talk to you again soon.